Welcome to 100 Proof Radio with Je Wesley, your weekly journey into examining your spirit choices and social etiquette in different settings. Do you know the written and unspoken rules about ordering and consuming alcohol during a night out on the town with your friends, at office holiday parties, or when hosting at home? Well, pour your favorite drink and get ready for an unfiltered, enlightening, and comfortable ride. Sit back and relax. And welcome to 100 Proof Radio with Je Wesley.
Welcome to 100 Proof with yours truly, Je Wesley, at our new home of Rolling Out. This is our 38th episode, and our topic tonight is cocktails and authors. Do authors need alcohol to unleash their creativity? Alcohol has always had a way of influencing personalities, and so it stands to reason that thoughts and ideas can rise up in authors and help influence character development, storylines, and other aspects of the creative process. Talking about this with talented authors will make for interesting conversations tonight. Tonight on 100 Proof Radio Show, we will lead a healthy, mature, and fun conversation about cocktails and authors. Is alcohol the key to unblocking writer's block? Our purpose, as always, is to dispel or confirm myths about alcohol. And tonight we're talking about confirming if alcohol and writing have a relationship, informing drinkers about how alcohol impacts them will assist them in being in control of their lives. It also gives them an opportunity to make better and healthier choices. Do you love to write? Do you have problems with writer's block? Do you like to drink a little wine while writing? Do you love a good conversation with a sip? Well, tonight on 100 Proof Radio Show, we will explore which beverage vice, if any, do authors use to get their book written. Studies have shown that most writers are heavy drinkers. Tonight we will speak to writers and learn their personal experiences with managing writer's block. Or alcohol make them forget what to write? Does alcohol get their creative juices flowing to begin writing? Do most authors use alcohol to celebrate the completion of their work? Cocktails and authors tonight will be an open and candid discussion with writers to discuss whether or not drinking can be open your creativity. So we have to my right here, my frat brother, Andrew Norton. How are you, sir?
Hey, doing great. How you doing this evening?
Excellent. And so what's the name of your book?
Well, there's two books that I've written. The first one came out last year, Deeper Than Your Deepest Sleep, Thoughts on Love with Joseph Snorton, recognized by both the Mississippi Book Festival and the Literary Festival of Charlotte, and the current release, 9 Stories of Faith, Volume 1.
All right, excellent. And on our phone line, we have Patrick Riley. How are you, Patrick?
Hi, how you doing, Je Wesley? Firstly, are the people watching this Facebook Live, how handsome are you two? I'm just saying.
Thank you, sir.
This is some good TV viewing, but I want your folks to know that my book is That's What Friends Are For, on the women who inspired me. And we are currently shipping to our pre-order buyers this week. And I hoped that I would be in Atlanta for some promotion with you, but I will be coming to Atlanta sometime very soon. So I hope I can be in studio with you. This is some good looking and that cocktail. I'm just saying.
Yes, and that's a good segue because our sponsor for tonight is B-Box Beverages, but I'll be introducing them later in the show. Meanwhile, I have one of our greatest sensationalist bartenders here of Atlanta, Georgia, Miss Kiyata. How are you?
Hola. I'm great. How are you?
Excellent. So tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm just a woman that has brown skin that makes tasty drinks for people to enjoy. I think that's... You want more?
No, so your new title is cocktail programmer.
I'm actually a cocktail programmer. I work with a group of beautiful women called Drinking with the Girls, and I also work with another one of my sisters in their group, Miss Tiffany Barrier, and we have a movement going with women that are in this industry with cocktails and knowledge and history and health and just everything to kind of educate anyone who wants to listen and make them a great drink as well.
All right. And at this point, this segment of our show is sponsored by our liquor sponsor tonight, B Box Beverages. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having us today.
Excellent.
Well, Beatbox Beverages, let me introduce you. Thanks for the opportunity. We're the world's tastiest portable party punch. We're 11.1% alcohol by volume. We have 3 classic flavors with a kick. We have our fruit punch, our blue raspberry, and of course my personal favorite, pink lemonade. Heard, right? Yeah, so all of our flavors have 120 calories per serving, 7 grams of sugar, and 100% gluten-free. We're featuring our Tetra Pak tonight, which is in front of everyone tonight. It's a 500 milliliter Tetra Pak. Each package contains 3.4 servings, and it's actually the equivalent, because the alcohol content, of a 750 milliliter bottle of wine, or the equivalent of 4 beers. So, how do we consume our product? Well, if you get a little bit of writer's block, you can actually open up the Tetra Pak, pour yourself a little bit of our blue raspberry, you can put the cap back on it, put it back in the fridge, and it stays great, fresh for 60 days.
All right, excellent, Jeff. Kiata, we got you one coming out.
I was about to
And
say.
so we didn't forget about you. So the producers are working on one for you. They got a fresh one coming out for you. But Andrew and I going to taste it for you.
Joe and Jay, my address is 654.
I got you.
Patrick, you're missing out. But Patrick, hopefully you're at home with your drink sipping with us.
I know. Well, I'm having actually a little rum and coke.
All right, excellent. Well, I like that. It's a nice, strong drink. So, Kiata, their producer, bringing your drink there. All right, and so this is wonderful. So, what inspired Beatbox Beverages?
Well, we just want to create a solution to getting our friends together over some music and just kind of creating an alternate solution to the beverage alcohol category, something that is fun and brings people together. So I think you're enjoying our cocktail, our fruit punch and our blue raspberry. That fruit punch tastes a lot like Hawaiian punch. The pink lemonade tastes like country time lemonade. And what would you say about that blue raspberry? Maybe that blue otter pop we had as kids, right?
I'm loving this.
It gives me the remembrance of Icy Pops back in the
Absolutely.
day growing up. And so for those of you that are watching, we do have more of Beatbox Beverages coming back later on in the segment, so be sure to stay tuned. But meanwhile, what do you think about this conversations? Do you write and sip?
Well, in actuality, being running a sales team, I write a lot because I'm writing a lot of programs and I write a lot of, and I'm not going to lie to you, sometimes we work really late at night and I need a little bit of liquid motivation to stay busy. So absolutely, we write programming and write presentations.
And it all makes sense the next day.
100%.
All
We're
right.
professionals. We're all professionals, right?
Excellent. So let's get to this deep in the conversation as we are in the midst of our Shake It Up segment right now. And the question tonight ultimately is, do authors drink and write? Patrick, that question is for you.
I don't have to drink to write, but I have a lovely relationship with a cocktail when I feel that it will get my juices flowing, if you will. Often, just with this book, That's What Friends Are For, and the women who inspired me, a lot of it was information from Entertainment Diaries and my blog, and I needed to sometimes I needed to kind of get myself centered to be able to go through the treasure trove of memories to try to shape these chapters up. And so one cocktail, maybe a glass of Prosecco, something simple to just kind of get the juices flowing is what works for me. Now, I don't overindulge when I'm writing because I get sleepy.
So ultimately, you do have a drink and it helps you go back down memory lane. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It just kind of gets my memory juices flowing. Yes.
And so, Andrew, what about you?
It really just depends on the topic. The main thing is every once in a while, with the first book, definitely because of the wide range of topics, I would get an occasional sip, probably ginger and Jack or rum and Coke. But the thing, just like was said earlier, you can't rely on that in order to get it done, because then you really It's really a question, do you have any writing skills? The second book, especially when you're dealing with themes of faith and spirituality, it's one thing to be full of the spirit, but you don't want to be full of spirits because otherwise it'll go all over the place. So an occasional, like you said, an occasional drink, yeah, occasional. You don't want to rely on that as the main way in order to get your ideas out, because then it's like, what are you writing for?
And so, Kiata, as the drink expert in the room, is this a good or bad thing that authors use alcohol to unleash their creativeness or help them go back memory lane? What's your thoughts on this?
I honestly think it really depends on the person, and as he said, it's his content as well. If you're probably writing something, as you said, more spiritual based, you may not want to be sipping on the sauce too heavy. But if you probably have
Sipping on
more
the sauce.
on the
All right
sauce,
now.
but if you're probably writing something more provocative, you may need that little touch of something to kind of open you up into things you wouldn't necessarily see if you were more clear. And then probably when you sober up or whatever, you can re-look at it and make sure it wasn't. I mean, I think everything from the beginning is with moderation. So you can't, get sloshed and then try to write something, because I'm pretty sure a lot of bad ideas happen when people are too sloshed.
Jeff, what's your thoughts on everything you've heard so far?
Well, look, I've always been in spots where, sometimes I need a little bit more creativity. You got to work hard, play hard, and I think that there's always a balance between, and as my mom would say growing up, everything in moderation. So I hear what you're saying, a little bit, kind of get the creative juices going, and I've lived that and experienced that, in my line of work.
And so, as an author, does it help to unleash the pressure? Because sometimes authors are under pressure to meet a deadline, is what I often hear by their publishers, or even deadlines they set for themselves. Even putting writing aside, does drinking become more prevalent under that type of pressure?
I'd say it's kind of what everyone said before. It depends on the person and it depends on the stressors. For some people, I'll say for me personally, it's generally moderation. We've all had a moment or two. To say that we haven't is a bold-faced lie. The big thing is making sure it's more of an episode instead of a mini-series. But again, different stressors are going to trigger different things for different people. And just like I said earlier, I probably did a little bit more with the first one than the second one, just because of the nature of the topics that were covered. And again, it's one of those things that you don't want to rely on that in order to meet your deadline, or in order to get your ideas out, or in order to let me just get this draft done. If you're relying on alcohol to get your work done, that's just not only a problem, right? It's a problem in general.
So overall, people, whether it's with writing or not, people use alcohol to assist them under pressure. Kiata, what's your thoughts as a expert in this industry of hearing people using alcohol to help unwind and unleash the pressure?
There's nothing wrong with unleashing and unwinding, but it's a time and a place for it. Again, if your profession is a writer and that is your job, you have a right to be clear-minded when you put these ideas in people's head and you put your talent to work and you have this job. Me, I am a beverage professional, so my job is to know beverages, to drink beverages, to talk to people about beverages. So it wouldn't make too much sense if I wasn't a person who didn't indulge in my job. But I think it's one of those things that, again, moderation, and you just have to be mindful of what you're doing. Again, like I said, there's nothing wrong with having a glass of wine to loosen you up, having a shot to, because pressure is good. People need pressure. But you don't want to, at any point, not have any control, not, be sound mind to do your job as a writer.
So, Patrick, you've talked about using alcohol to help you go back down memory lane. Do you use alcohol to take the pressure off?
I like that you referenced earlier how sometimes it's in the celebration of the completed work where the cocktail may present itself. Because I thought about that other relationship that I have with alcohol. It is on the exhale of a completed chapter when maybe I don't have a deadline the next day, because I'm not going to be hungover the next day because I still need to be centered, for what I have to do. But I do have that relationship with alcohol where I exhale on the back end. Let's celebrate that the project is done. Let's celebrate that it just published. Let's celebrate that, we got the deal, and so I do definitely play with cocktails more on the back end of a job well done, as long as I don't have a job to do the next day, if that makes sense.
So, Andre, it does. I'm always looking for a reason to celebrate with the cocktail. And so, but Andre, he just touched on a good point as far as needing to be centered the next day. Have you ever had an experience where alcohol have hindered your creative writing process in any way?
I'd say sometimes, because sometimes it just depends on the mood. It depends on the stressors, because in general, if I have a sip, it's kind of what was said before, as you're getting momentum and you get closer to the end of that chapter or that draft or getting that assignment done, it's more of an exhale moment every once in a while in order to get the juices flowing. But again, to me, you're playing with fire if you are utilizing alcohol to get your creative juices going. And this is just from my background of having written for magazines before, like I said, having done 2 books. Every once in a while is fine, but again, I think the theme that all of us are saying, and we all agree, it's moderation. You can't overdo it. And again, it comes back to what I said earlier. If you are reliant on alcohol to help you tap into your creativity, if you're reliant on that to manage your stressors, if the key thing is you can't rely on that, because you're gonna put yourself in a position that it'll take you a while to get back out of. And like was said earlier, if you've done a lot of celebrating the night before and you've got that festival or that book signing, that's probably not a good idea to go ahead and go overboard.
So, brother man, have you ever been hindered by alcohol the next day where you were not centered?
Oh no, that's one thing. Thank God Almighty,
Keep
I
it
have
100
not had
now.
that. I am
This is
keeping it
100 proof.
I'm keeping it 100 in the
Look,
skies.
I'm going to keep it real with you guys. I have had days where I have consumed too much and was not as centered the next day. I think we've all had a moment in our adult lives where it's happened.
Yeah.
So it happens. But you're saying
it happens. I think for me, I've kept that type of situation real minimal. And part of it is because my background and my major is in English, is in writing. So writing for me isn't that hard to do. Even coming up with different ideas or tapping into things, it comes back into, I can lean more on my experience and my upbringing than relying on a drink. Now, like I said before, have all of us had a misstep? Absolutely. I'm thankful that my missteps, let's say during the course of the writing process, haven't prevented me from catching that flight the next day.
If I could piggyback
Go ahead.
on that, I love that we're talking about being experienced writers, because as experienced writers or professional writers, we're professionals. So within that, there is discipline. So we have the discipline about what it is and how it is that we need to be able to do what we do. But then we are also grown and sexy, and we know how to do and work that hangover if we have to. But the disciplined people that we are likely not going to be doing what we do drunk. And if we are, that becomes the other part of the conversation. That's the problem, the abuse piece. And that's kind of a separate conversation.
Kiara, how much is too much drinking while writing?
I tend to blog from time to time, so I'm nowhere near as professional as these 2 men. But, I mean, if you can't pick your pen or you can't turn your laptop on and the words are floating, I'm pretty sure you've had enough. But, I mean, I don't know who would work at that point. If that's the case, you might want to just start fresh in the morning. So I don't know.
If I may, I'm just going to jump in. I think all of us have our respective names. None of us here are Edgar Allan Poe, who is known to write stuff on acid trips. So, I mean, now that worked for him, but that sure as heck is not going to work for me.
Ground Poe. What's
Edgar
Poe?
Allan Poe. So if you
Okay.
remember the book The Raven, that book
Yes.
was written entirely with him being on an acid
You know,
trip.
a lot makes sense that you said that, brother, because I had to read that in high school, and that was
See, you were fortunate. I had to read it in middle school. Gosh darn it. That was horrible. Horrible.
So, for those that are out there watching, we have our Causing a Stir segment coming up in 7 minutes. This is where you get to chime in and ask questions. So, we encourage you to go to Rolling Out's Facebook page and type your questions and/or comments in, and we will ask them here on air. So, in 7 minutes, be prepared to ask your questions. May as well go right now and ask and share this to someone that you need that you feel needs to hear this conversation out there, because as always 100 proof is all about drinking responsibly and drinking maturely. So Patrick, does your work take a darker tone when writing under the influence? For some people it can be darker in multiple ways. It all depends on how you find dark. It could be more sexual. It could be more scary. What's the word for scary in books?
Suspenseful.
Yes,
Moody,
yes,
maybe
suspenseful.
moody.
Right.
Unnerving.
Moody.
That just shows how far I go.
Unnerving.
Scary.
It's
So-
fine. It works.
right.
Hey, look, if it's accessible and authentic, it does. That's all that matters.
Right. So
I'm feeling
Patrick, does it go
feeling-
darker when you're under the influence?
Well, you know, I turned into Barry White when I had a little
Oh,
drink
my.
and I'm
Yeah.
doing a little something extra. No, for real. When I thought about it when we were talking earlier, when you mentioned, like if I were a fictional writer, I could probably see leaning on the sauce a little bit more to get in the mood of creating scene, creating sensuality, creating something sexy for that moment in the narrative. That's not my particular book that's currently in the marketplace, but I could see if I were a fictional writer, maybe going there, because to answer your question, I think I do. I think I can go there with with a few, with a couple of rounds. I could see kind of getting sick. And so maybe somewhere in there, and I probably don't have the evidence of it. If I looked at articles maybe that I've written with a couple of extra drinks, maybe some of those intros to those Q&As were maybe written with a sexier lens. I'm going to have to go back and research it now that we're kind of unpacking
Well,
it.
you no need to research because my producers have already done their homework. So that's what
Uh-oh.
what it means having a good team behind you. Nancy J. Anderson, a professor of psychiatry at the University of Iowa with a PhD in English, did a 15-year study of 30 creative writers on the faculty of the Iowa Writers Workshop.
Do
She-
tell.
She found that 30% of the writers used alcohol. All right. So here's another one. Writers such as Edgar Allan Poe, you just mentioned him, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and Ernest
Ernest Hemingway.
Hemingway
Hemingway for sure.
Were
have
known.
attested to a deep psychological creative connection to drinking. So I will save some more of these facts for you all later. So Andrew, hearing this, what are your thoughts?
I'm not surprised, and I think it's just like was said earlier. If it's something that's going to be fictional and you're using your imagination, the influence of alcohol can be a catalyst. Again, it's that fine line between using that as a catalyst and relying on it. And just like I said before you even read the survey, it was known about Edgar Allan Poe, but then also the culture at that time was where it was definitely more accepted. So you've got to kind of factor those things. What were the cultural, mores and things along those lines? Now, if you're writing something factual, I'm sure some people would probably end up doing that. I'm not going to say to embellish, but more so to accentuate a couple of things. Like if there's something that was a little bit more dramatic in nature or things along those lines. Again, we know, are there writers that use alcohol? Yes. Are there writers that use alcohol periodically to give them that little push? Absolutely. Are there some that are very reliant on it in order to get things done? Absolutely. Like you think about, I don't know, like I'm going back in time with the Never-Ending Story. Now, I'm not the smartest one in this room, but I guarantee that some of those people that are writing about animals in the clouds and
Flying through the air.
flying through the
Flying
air.
dog. I
Come
get
on.
it.
Or even one other thing. You think about what the Disney movie Puff the Magic Dragon. Come on, Puff the Magic Dragon. Who names a dragon Puff?
I'm just saying. I'm sure
Who
that's-
names their child Puff Daddy?
Exactly.
Here we go.
So, Kiata, hearing all of this, what are your thoughts on all of this, hearing this, of the history of authors and writers having a personal relationship with alcohol?
There's not a problem with having a relationship with alcohol. It's a problem when the relationship takes over and takes a bad turn. People get inspired by many things. Like a lot of companies, liquor brands, liquor companies are inspired by different things, and it's an industry that's not going away. Hemingway, have a drink named after him. Probably one of the best drinks on the planet. Hemingway Daiquiri. Hemingway Daiquiri.
You know what's in that by chance?
I do, but I ain't telling you. It's delicious. It's rum. It's tangy. It's a little bit of grapefruit. It's delicious, but it's not for everyone. But anyway, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having that relationship. There's nothing wrong with it. It's how you use that relationship and you don't abuse that relationship.
Excellent. And so we have our sponsor back at the table.
Hey.
Jeff, what's your thoughts on this conversation so far from what you've been hearing?
Well, first off, I'm enjoying the conversation and learning a lot, and I think that there's definitely a relationship amongst all people, 21 or up, as long as they drink responsibly. There's definitely a relationship between alcohol, whatever you do, whatever line of work you're in, right? Because alcohol does a really good job of calming you down. So, it's interesting hearing the points from the authors, and I definitely can relate in my line of work.
All right, excellent. So for all of you all out there that's watching, we want to encourage you to share this to your Facebook pages, because people need to hear this conversation so that they understand how alcohol impacts you. 100 Proof is all about giving you fact-based information, the good, the bad, the indifferent, so that you can choose what's best for you and know how it impacts you. So be sure to go to our Causing a Stir segment that's coming up in 1 minute, which is on the Rolling Out's Facebook page, and you can ask your questions there or put your comments, and we're going to read them live on air. Meanwhile, we are ready for another 1 minute sip, so we encourage you to go get your sip so that you can drink with us, because this show, 38th episode, is brought to you by B-Box Beverages. Jeff,
Cheers.
back to you.
Thank you so much. So a lot of talk about cheers. A lot of talk about occasion sips to lips, and so I think this minute we should talk about the best drinking occasions for Beatbox Beverages. So this was created to bring people together. So we do a lot of work at music festivals, but there's this package right here. The Tetra Pak is 100% recyclable. So for all you folks that are going to go out on the rivers and the lakes this summer, this is a great package for you to go out. And once again, I just want to call out, there's 3.4 servings per container here, and this retails generally for about $3.99 at your local convenience store. So I would invite everybody to check out our website. It's www.beatboxbeverages.com. We have a store locator, so you can find the store closest to you that carries Beatbox Beverages. And also, please follow us on Instagram at Beatbox Beverages. So certainly enjoying the conversation. Thank you so much for having us.
No, the pleasure is definitely mine. And so you all were started in Austin, Texas. Who's the founder?
So there's three founders, Justin Fenchel, Amy Stedman, and Brad. They were going to college at the University of Texas in Austin, and came up with the portable party punch, and thought it was a great solution to go in and be in the life of the party.
Excellent. And so how many states? Is it found everywhere? Is it all over the nation, or is it certain states?
Yeah, we're in 20 states, and
Okay,
I would
that's
say
good.
the majority of the Southeast. We're also in Texas, obviously, where we started, and we're also in California. Those are our main areas.
And so for the people in Atlanta, Georgia, that's where most of our audience is. Where can they find the product?
Please go to our website. It's www.beatboxbeverages.com. We have a store locator on our website. So you can go to our website, and they can type in their address, and it'll tell them the closest store to them.
And who's your distributor here locally?
Oh, thanks for calling that out. I want to give a special shout out to United Distributors here in Atlanta, Georgia. Amazing partners. Yeah.
All right, yes, United.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much. David Schulberg, John Ramsford, the whole
And
team.
so this is the fruit punch that I'm having now.
Absolutely.
All right, so I do like the fruit punch better than the pink lemonade.
Well,
So
pink lemonade's my favorite.
I thought the pink lemonade would have been my favorite, but I like the fruit punch better. Kiata, which flavor have you liked best of the two you've tried?
They're both delicious. I'll make my final decision then.
All right,
thank you.
excellent. So let's make sure she get a round, a
Absolutely.
third round. Let's make sure we all get a third round so we
Done.
can decide. So, Andrew, I'm gonna hold on you. Patrick, are you still there drinking with us?
I'm still here, but for my care package, I'd like to try the pink lemonade first.
I'm going to send you
But
all
I
three,
have-
no problem.
Wait, so
I'm keeping the rum and
Patrick, are we
coke.
getting some books, man? You talking about bartering? Do we get some books?
Oh, absolutely. We can take care of that. Absolutely.
All right, excellent. And remember, I got students. This whole show is being produced by Clark Atlanta University students.
All right.
So let's give my producer a round of applause. So make sure you send them some books, please. These kids need to read.
It's my alma mater by way of Morehouse College. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right then.
All right, excellent. And we have a Spelman Knight in the room with us. She's my HR director.
AUC
So-
in the house.
love. AUC love, baby. AUC love.
Love it.
Absolutely. So we are in the midst of our Causing a Stir segment. This is where you get to chime in and give us your feedback and your comments. So we want to acknowledge Jared, who's watching. He said, looks and sounds great. Jared Bon Jovi.
That's a cool name.
Yes,
Oh,
it is.
sounds like John.
Cool name.
With
I know,
Bon
I love
Jovi.
it.
Wonders from
Jared, we
Sayreville.
see you, man. We have Brian Jenkins. He says, that's how they tied in. All right. I'm not sure what that means. Jared Bon Jovi says, beatbox beverage has dope beat playing too. What do they mean by that, dope beat playing? Y'all do something with music or something? Oh, he's talking about the music in the background.
Yeah.
Oh,
I wish I had some skills. I could have flowed a little bit better. It was nice,
because it
though.
went together. Beatbox,
did.
you know, and
I
y'all,
like it.
all of you all's. So, what's the inspiration behind your art? Because it all looked like a 80s jukebox.
Right. It's all tied back to music. Once again, bringing everybody together and our love for music. And we're heavily involved with music festivals. We just did a couple of music festivals a couple weeks ago. Did Rolling Loud down in Miami and Shaky Beats here in Atlanta. And
Sweet.
yeah, we had a really good time, and consumers really loved our product. We sold out at both events.
Right, and we met at the Usher's Mention Party.
We did, yeah.
Maybe
Exhibit
about a
Craig.
month ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Exhibit
excellent.
Craig.
And so we have also Jared Bon Jovi says, haha, it's me, Chance, your engineer. Oh, it's Chance. Chance is our engineer who's not here today. So that's who that is. And so that's all we have. So ultimately, we are in the Causing a Stir segment. Be sure to type your comments in here by going to Rolling Out's Facebook page, and we will chime in. Meanwhile, we're going to go back to the conversation at hand, and we talked about sharing more facts. Right now, we have writing and drinking were almost synonymous in 20th century America. Booze has come to seem a natural accompaniment of the literary life, wrote Alfred Kazin in commentary in 1976. A symbol of the profession's loneliness, creative aspirations, and frenzies. So I didn't necessarily get what I just read myself. So we're going to keep on moving right there. So let's bring it back to you, Jeff. The thoughts of the conversation. Do you think it's a bad thing that authors use alcohol to express their freedoms or go deeper to a deeper place?
Not at all. I don't think it's a bad. I think that as long as they're drinking beatbox beverages, I'm good with it.
Exactly.
No,
You better
I actually.
say
So what's your take? Because I'm really big on corporate social responsibility.
Absolutely.
So what role do you think that manufacturers and distributors have with assuring that consumers understand the impact of alcohol?
I think we shoulder a lot of that burden, and I think you're seeing it come out, and and how beverage alcohol brands advertise and what they communicate on brand messaging. I think you'll always see with whether it's a major brewer, wine, spirits, or brewery, what they call out on their point of sale, you'll always see drink responsibly. So I think we shoulder a huge burden, and I think that folks in the industry, including bartenders, shoulder a huge burden to educate. But it's also on the person. I think that you have to know your limits, and I like what was said earlier about making sure that those times in your lives are more of an episode and not a mini series.
Yeah.
I'm really gonna take that with me tonight, because I think that there's a lot of times in life where you may make the bad decision, right? But make sure that's just one episode you learn from it. You don't turn that into a mini series. So I appreciate that comment.
No problem. Just give me credit.
Absolutely. 100%.
So, Patrick, turning it back to you, based on what Jeff just said, what are your thoughts for those that do make it a mini series versus an episode when it comes to being an author?
Sure. They don't call it liquid courage for nothing in all of our domains. So for a writer who has a relationship with a cocktail that helps open them up in that way, I don't judge it. I don't know that it's the healthier lean in the grand scheme of a long career and a healthy life. When we were talking earlier about those cultural norms, I think of also as a journalist, what defined a journalist back in the day based on cultural norms: cigarette, smoking, get the deadline, it looked a certain way. And then over time, society got healthier with how it chose to have that relationship with, in that case, cigarettes or not. And then in the case of alcohol, I think we're just choosing more responsibly as a society. So I think within the writing world, there's a polarizing split. There's a split of the old school that kind of lean that way, and there's an emotional connection there. But there's those of us who, might have done that in college. It just doesn't work, for me in the grand scheme of my career as a writer. It just doesn't work to have that lean be that way.
So, Andrew, what are your thoughts on what Patrick just said?
I definitely agree. You raised some good points, and I think all of us are saying that some of the behavior, it's a byproduct of the culture. Just like we were talking about earlier, with Poe and Hemingway and things along those lines, that was part of the culture. And just like people take creative license, when you think about, for example, a movie, how they reinterpret different things, they'll take creative license. Sometimes creative license comes in the fact of what elements or what things you use in order to get the process going. So you're going to have that audience that's going to be more old school and traditional and maybe lean, like was said was said earlier, like what was done in the 18th, 19th, and early 20th century. You're going to have some that are very regimented and rigid where they're not. Then you're going to have those folks who are in the middle where periodically you're going to have some use, just every once in a while for a spike. But again, ultimately it comes down to, this is just me, if you have to rely on it in order to get things done, it is a problem. And then you really have to draw your skill set into question as well as your motivation. Why are you doing what you're doing? And like I said, for me, it's a periodic thing. It depends on the topic. Like I said earlier, if it's something of a little bit more serious nature, I'm letting my writing talents and my experience kick in. If it's something that's a little bit broader based and I can take a little bit of license, then yeah, I'm going to go ahead and indulge a little bit. But again, I have to make sure that even in indulging, I'm not going over the top.
So, Kiata, when you're bartending, do you sip and work?
No, absolutely not. I keep creating and I taste and everything, or if there's a point where, say, and this has happened before, like I had a guest leave me 100 on 50. Yeah, I'm toasting to that. I mean, that's a celebration. But I'm not at work getting sloshed. I'm not at work having a cocktail savoring the moment. I'm at work to work. But that's me. Some people know how to handle their liquor. Some people don't, and it's unfortunate. But again, as a beverage professional, I'm professional with my beverages.
So, Patrick, when you are writing under the influence, can you see a difference in your writing versus when you're writing sober?
I do. I add a beat to the process when I'm in that state. And the beat is a next day of copy editing or a bit of copy editing after the nap. And I do find that my copy might be fleshed out and well narrated, but it's not always as pristine as when I'm on my game.
Jeff, why do you think authors use alcohol in writing Any thoughts of why they may go to it? Why it's a go-to? Versus soda, versus water, versus a Red Bull, versus a Coca-Cola. Why do you think?
Now, wait a minute. I love a Coca-Cola. Now,
So
you
what,
did say we could talk about Coca-Cola.
yeah. So it's any beverage vice. So rank them for me. We're gonna go around the room and rank your three. So what are your top three, Patrick? We'll start with you. Of
You just said it: Coca-Cola, champagne, and then rum and Coke. You know, if I'm gonna go for a kind of a hearty hot cocktail.
all right, and Andrew, what would be your three beverage vices?
My three beverage vices: ginger and Jack, rum and Coke, and to be determined.
All right. Well, you know what? I think B-Box is going to be one of mine.
I know. I should have said that.
Can I answer the question?
B-Box is definitely going to be added to the mix of the three. But it'll definitely be a vodka gimlet is definitely my first choice. That's not going anywhere. And I try to, maybe if writing, doing something light. So something around maybe a champagne or a white wine, Prosecco maybe would be a good choice. And B-Box, I'm sorry you come third, but you make the rankings.
Make the list.
You make the list.
You want to know mine?
You know what? Let's go to Kiata first. We're gonna go to Kiata and
But
then.
I'm interested in knowing.
Okay. So go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Well, you know what it is.
I know.
Oh, it's
Fruit punch, B-Box fruit punch, B-Box pink lemonade, and B-Box blue raspberry.
See, shame was
so
All
you
right,
say
so after
fruit punch
B-Box,
is your number one.
Pink lemonade is number 1, blue raspberry 2, and fruit punch number 3.
Okay, and so that
But if
all
I'm
ranks
not
into number
drinking-
one.
If I'm not drinking Beatbox, you're asking me what would I go with?
Exactly.
I would
So what's your second and third?
Yeah, I love a Jack and Coke.
Heard Jack and Coke.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and obviously some craft beer is really good as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
craft beer man. All right, Kiata. We're gonna talk about your Negronis later.
Oh my
So I went out to an event yesterday for Kiata, and we're gonna talk about it in our hotspot segment. And because today's Negroni week, yay for Negroni week, and we're
Yes,
gonna
yes, yes.
explain what that's all about.
We are.
But what's your top three choices?
So if I had to only pick three, I am a gin girl number 1, a bourbon lady number 3, and a beer maven.
Okay.
Nice.
So, I mean, this could be in the top 5. Over here, kind of
Right.
consistent,
Thank you for that.
Gin, bourbon, and beer for sure. I'm a lady.
All right, excellent. So, Kiata, you have children.
I do.
And so-
and they're listening right now, actually.
All right, excellent. So give them a shout out. Tell them hi.
Hi, James and Glenn. Bedtime coming soon. I had to wrap it up real quick, y'all. Thank you.
So I say that to say that having children, my son is 19. Thank God he's out of elementary school. And even with as many degrees that I have 2 master degrees, but helping him do homework was a killer growing up. Like, it make you want to have
Oh, my
a drink
goodness.
that the assignments that these kids get.
I don't know how they do it now. It's,
Right.
It's too much. It's too. I will never tell them they're smarter than me ever.
Right.
Jeez. This whole
Well-
homework situation is crazy.
Well, I mean, part of one of my business hats is working in education, like tutoring and SAT, ACT prep. So yes, hours of entertainment is an understatement.
Right. So, Patrick, going back to you, how many drinks would you say if you were on a resort just to write a book for an entire 7 days, free flowing of beatbox, champagne, anything that you want at your fingertips, how much do you think you would consume for that entire 7 days?
You mean how much work would I have gotten done?
No, how many drinks would you have on
Oh.
average per day?
I should be adding what I had for my 8 days over Memorial Day weekend or around in the Dominican Republic at the all-inclusive Grand Malia. And let's see, on average, I had 24 glasses of champagne, 5 rums and cokes, and maybe 6
Patrick,
strawberries. Yes.
I would have never
That's
guessed.
okay.
Wait, a day?
Man,
And that's a day.
Okay,
Whoa.
I love you. Keep it 100. See, Patrick and I hung out and at NABJ.
Right. We work hard, we play hard.
Yes.
Oh, I
yeah,
see. All right,
clearly.
folks, I hear you. I
And
hear
so,
you.
for those that
Clearly.
don't know,
my.
NABJ is the National Association of Black Journalists, and for the last few years, they've brought me in as their executive producer, and I
Okay.
run the hospitality suite.
Look at you.
Which is a huge suite, and you probably have
Yeah.
at least 1,000 people flowing through this room.
And it's where I first got introduced to your magic with the mixology
Right.
and your magic with hospitality. And
So what you're saying? You met me as a drunk? Is that what you're saying, Patrick?
How about
well,
as a
you've done-
connoisseur of libations?
No, I got what you're saying. I'm just
You've
teasing.
mixed some potent cocktails over these years,
Right.
and you know what you're doing. I'm just saying.
Right. I appreciate that. Thank you. So, with that being said, Andrew, the same scenario, if you were given the opportunity to go on the island all by yourself, any cocktail, any beverage of your choice, all day, any day, how much would you consume?
Well, since you'd say,
And you're there to write.
oh, I'm there to write. Let's see, all day, any day. I don't have to go anywhere. Man, that number could be ridiculous.
all your bills are paid for, so you're not stressing about how you're going to pay the rent or any of that.
I'll just say this: writing wouldn't take place the first day. That's for sure. That's just leveling with you. I think
I'll get around to it.
it'll be like the younger folks say. It'll be pregame, and then you get your work done, and then it'll be postgame, and that's pretty much it. So, in regards to raw numbers, why put limits
All right.
on something along those
No
lines?
limits, sir.
I like that. So, Patrick, I want to come back to you real quick. Go ahead.
Jay, we buried the lead, though. The offset for those kinds of antics is coffee. Good, strong coffee.
And we're talking about beverages. So, what's your type of coffee? How do you have your
I
coffee?
do like a double espresso, that type of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you still supporting Starbucks in the midst of what's going on?
No, it's so funny. I mean, not like like that, but I have not been back.
Okay.
And I made the joke that I wasn't going to go until after the 29th, so I know the 29th is passed.
Was that
so I
after
have
their
not-
training?
Yeah, the training, right? So I haven't made it back. I'm not per se saying I'm boycotting, but to answer your question, no, I